Public Citizen grew out of the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement, where students were able to influence government decisions. Ralph Nader decided to form Public Citizen because he saw that corporations had so much influence in Washington. They called the shots on Capitol Hill in the government agencies. And he wanted to have an organization that put the citizen's voice in the middle of the halls of power, that could influence the decisions that were being made, whether it was in the Congress, in the courts, or in the executive agencies. I came to Washington in 1965 on a fellowship to work for a member of Congress from Atlanta, Georgia, and he wanted me to work on auto safety. I wasn't particularly interested in cars, but then I read Ralph Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed, which explained that whether or not you got injured in a crash depended on how the car was designed.
He accused Detroit car
Well, when
makers of
Public
being
Citizen
more
was
inter-
first formed, it was an experiment, and no one really knew whether it would work and how long it would last.
I was back in the late 60s, early 70s, a physician working at the National Institutes of Health. I left to start the Health Research Group, which was the first part of Public Citizen, because I thought that the public was being exposed to a large number of dangerous drugs, workplaces, medical practices, for which there was good evidence of a problem, and yet no one was doing anything about it. So for all of the 30 years that we've been working on these issues, we've been doing our own research, analyzing other people's research, and using it as a basis for taking action to protect people by forcing the government to regulate, or by putting out books to inform people about dangers that they might want to act on.
There is a way, however, to check out your doctors. It's a guide called Questionable Doctors, disciplined by state and federal governments.
But if you have Tylenol and alcohol, this metabolite, this product of Tylenol, starts piling up and killing the liver off. What you've described very accurately, most patients don't know about, and unfortunately a lot of doctors don't know about it. If we get a drug taken off the market that is being used by hundreds of thousands of people, we can save hundreds of lives, and we've done that a number of times. So I personally feel as though I am connected to everyone in the country, and that I have a chance to try and help people to improve their health. So in that sense, I have a large medical practice, so to speak.
After Public Citizen and Ralph Nader had an impact on government decisions, the corporations came roaring back with hordes of lobbyists to Washington, D.C. To try and undercut our health and safety protections, and they've been there ever since. Public Citizen has done a terrific job in limiting the chemicals in our workplace, in our food, in the environment. And we have sustained our effort over all these years, getting labeling, for example, on dangerous products that can cause illness, and filing lawsuits on behalf of citizens so that we make the government behave, and also defend constitutional principles and open up government files so that the information is public and available to everyone. And we've also had a major impact on nuclear power and enforced efforts to try and get safe energy and clean energy available for our environment. Auto safety has been one of our most important areas. Over 40,000 people are killed every year in auto crashes, and hundreds of thousands are injured. But we have worked over the years to get improved safety standards one by one, the most important of which has been airbags. It took us 25 years to get airbags in cars, and then the auto companies put in lousy, cheap systems that didn't protect women and children. And we had to go back to the Congress, get new legislation to force them to design airbags that really work to protect the public.
We did file a petition back, this is in the 70s, to forbid smoking on all domestic flights and to try to get into international treaties smoking restrictions on international flights. They said we were crazy to get smoking banned on airplanes. They said we were also crazy to get medical kits on airplanes. We sued the FAA in 1985 to ensure that every airplane contained basic fundamental medical kits. That fight took us 5 years as well, and ultimately we had to go to court. They refused even to carry Band-Aids because they were worried maybe that if someone got a gash and an airline flight attendant put on a bandage, they would somehow become liable. Shortly after Public Citizen was founded, we made it as priority number one to get the Freedom of Information Act amended so it could be used effectively by ordinary Americans. Our probably most famous case in this area is the release and processing of all of the audio tapes that were recorded during the administration of President Nixon.
If you notice, the president says he's heard the tapes, or some of them, and they sustain his position. But he says he's not going to let anybody else hear them, for fear they might draw a different conclusion.
This principle of confidentiality of presidential conversations is at stake.
And after literally 3 separate lawsuits spanning a decade, we managed to get a judicial order finally requiring these documents to be processed, for the audio tapes to be released to the public.
Lawyers from the Public Citizen Litigation Group have argued 40 cases before the Supreme Court, winning more than 60% of them. We have fought for the constitutional and statutory rights of consumers, environmental groups, ordinary citizens, and even members of Congress.
Citizen access to the courts, our third branch of government, is essential because it is the only forum where citizens can hold large corporations accountable for selling defective products that harm, products like the Firestone tire, silicone breast implants. And this is really important because otherwise our market system runs amok and the average citizen is in harm's way. Many corporations would like to eliminate this basic constitutional right, and they have denigrated our entire legal system. But Public Citizen has fought back and will continue to do so.
If government officials know they'll be held accountable for their decisions, they'll engage in better reasoned decision-making. When we sue OSHA to force it to issue a standard, we're helping government protect the workers who OSHA is supposed to protect. When we sue the FDA to get a dangerous drug off the market, they will be taking action that will protect hundreds, thousands, sometimes millions of American consumers. So we see our job as making government work better for every American. That's why I'm here. That's why Public Citizen exists.
Public Citizen has put out a new report, and let me give you a chance to respond to that as well. This is what they said in a report issued last night. In the last 2 years, Senators Lott and McConnell have worked legislatively with great success on behalf of 3 major industries: managed care, casino gambling, and tobacco.
So often I see proposals in Congress that have a sound to it as if maybe it's good policy. But if it weren't for Public Citizens coming in, we wouldn't hear both sides. So I think that Public Citizens plays a unique role and an essential role in the legislative process.
Corporations put huge amounts of money into the political process, and it influences the price that you pay for sugar, the price you pay for electricity and other basic necessities, whether you can afford the medicines that you want to buy, and whether you have other health and safety protections. Many people don't think that we can reform this system, but we have had some success, and it's too important to stop now.
In 1991, when I was working on food safety, we discovered a whole realm of public interest issues that were under attack through so-called trade agreements and globalization. We found to be effective consumer advocates at this era, we had to work in the international realm, because so much of what Public Citizen had won was being undone in secret fora through the back doors of so-called trade agreements. And what we found out was that through arcane foreign venues like the World Trade Organization or GATT, corporations were behind closed doors negotiating with our governments to label our most basic food safety, environmental, worker safety protections as illegal trade barriers so they could find another way to sack them. Just like what food your kid can eat and what pesticides are in it, what kind of products will have what kind of contaminants, and what you can know about it with labeling. The most basic things were under attack in these venues, and no one knew.
We're living through a very difficult time right now. We have a Republican administration and a Republican-run Congress. And they have as their goals to weaken environmental protection, to benefit the pharmaceutical and the health industry at the expense of patients. They would like to keep the campaign finance system exactly the way it is because they know that the big money will continue to keep them in power. Public Citizen is out there pointing out that we've got to get the public informed and activated to make sure that some of these bad things don't happen.
Public Citizen has never taken any money from business or from government. and this has allowed us to speak out on controversial and important issues of the day. But we couldn't do this without our members from all across America giving us contributions large and small. Support for our work on health, safety, and democracy is needed now more than ever. We have seen the power of citizens, and it has just begun.
One morning I woke up and I knew it was wrong. A new day, a new way. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong.
There will be no business as usual today.
Getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and carrying signs.